we are going off of our Mocha vanilla extract, and it's on page 96 if you have our book, if you want to follow along. So we started this in November, okay? This is the one we started, Mocha vanilla, and then I made it with Svedka. My beginning date, I always check the top, you guys, because this has happened to me. Make sure it's closed. I always put my beginning date on the bottom. We started this in November on the 21st. It's supposed to be changed out 1 month, right? And that was a month ago, a little over a month ago. And we were going to do that in our last live, and we kind of had a snafu. Crazy little, express snafu. So I just put these back in. So I wanted to be able to show you how I do this, how I take out the beans and the cacao. And so they're going to be in here an extra month. And this is where I would write this in the back of my book. Here, I would say, kept them in 1 month longer than the recipe. So if you like it better, you can do it again. But if I'm just following along with the recipe, I don't feel like I have to, make any additional notes.
No, and if I could even add to that, because I just received an email yesterday, and this is a very common email that we get from someone that goes past a date, or they're really, really worried because it was supposed to be changed out on 30 days and we're at day 38, or they missed it, or whatever. And they're worried, like, did I ruin my extract? And really, no, you're not going to ruin your extract. Again, that's the flexibility that's sort of inherent in extract making. You can choose to leave the coffee and the cacao in there for longer if you want more of a coffee and cacao taste. Some people may want to leave it in there for 90 days or for 120 days to really make it come through. We find that it's pretty potent. It seems to us that a month was like the sweet spot. But here's a great example of us going a little bit longer, and we're just rolling with it, to make sure that it works well.
Yep. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to strain out everything in. Can you move the book just a little bit so I can make sure that you all can see what we're doing here? And we're just shaking this out. All I have in here are cacao beans, coffee beans, and vanilla. Now, the only thing I have left in here, I've got some cacao. You can rinse it out if you want, but I don't want to get rid of all of my little specks. I've got a ton of vanilla still in here. So I'm just going to I think maybe I can see one little cacao bean in there. I'm going to leave it. But if you don't want that in there, you can rinse this out and then put your vanilla beans back in and then add back the liquid. Now, this is the part where I'm like, well, how much has my cacao bean and coffee beans absorbed all of my liquid, right? All of my alcohol. I started with 8 ounces, right? So I'm going to go look down here, and you guys, I'm barely under 1 cup, barely. So, I mean, whatever is still sitting in here, and probably a lot of it is absorbed into my vanilla beans, which I'm putting back into the bottle. So with the cacao and the coffee beans, you'll just have to see how much has been absorbed. Really, I don't feel the need to have to top this off because I am just below the line. But you can at this point top off if you want it exactly at 1 ounce. You can add just a little bit more vodka, and we use Svedka. But I mean, even if you don't have any Svedka at that time, you can add another vodka, a little bit like that. It's not going to matter at that point.
That's always the concern, is people worried that they're going to then dilute it, or adding the extra alcohol, is going to take away from. But in the case with multiple ingredients, that's not the case. Again, we always go back to our baseline, the FDA 0.83 ounces of beans to every 8 ounces of alcohol. And then we apply that to other dry ingredients. And so in this case, it's almost like this is a triple fold extract. because we have the cocoa nibs, we have the coffee, plus we have the vanilla beans all in that original 8 ounces. And so,
so you've got a lot of different flavors, spices soaking up that alcohol.
Yep. And so adding a little bit of alcohol to make sure that the beans are submerged, or to get your alcohol level back up with something like this, you're just fine.
Yep. Okay, so this, if you're wondering, this goes to my rice cooker. I mean, you just look in the cupboard and see what works, right?
But
So
we like that one.
I just like it because it fits in my strainer perfectly, and I can just kind of move everything around. Sometimes I'll just put it in the strainer and walk away, you know, and let it kind of just dry out and do its thing. But when I check, I really am not missing too much here. So, you know, what you want to do here is just, it's going to take a little bit of time. Whoops. It's going to take a little time. You're going to have to get all of the little vanilla pods back into your jar. And I cut them in very small pieces because I wanted to make sure that they were absorbed at the bottom of the jar when we put everything in together. So you're just going to kind of pick out all the different vanilla. And they're cut into small pieces. You could have tied them, so you could keep the vanilla bean whole to save the caviar or the seeds inside for later. But for this one in particular, I just cut them all to have them small at the bottoms, because you want to make sure that all of the ingredients are submerged. And when you have all of the coffee beans and the cacao beans, it takes up a lot of space. And the alcohol was just at the top of all the ingredients. So I'm just kind of, you know, kind of digging around here to see if I can see any more. And I need my glasses because I can't see it all.
There, those beans are the same color as the coffee beans.
I know, and you guys,
it's like a little treasure hunt here.
I can't see up close. All of a sudden, my vision up close is like gone.
Seriously, how does that happen?
I know.
We didn't always have glasses, you know. Something happens as we're getting older.
Oh.
I don't know what it is. I thought if we surrounded ourselves with vanilla beans, we'd have like perfect vision until we were 95. But
yeah,
it's not the case.
So I think I've got it.
Yeah, it looks like you've got it.
So you could try this out and powder it out. Use it as a powder. Do you guys have a favorite thing that you do with your cacao and coffee beans once you dry them out? You can just, I just leave them out on the counter and I've powdered them. But do you guys have anything else that you like to do? Because we don't like to waste anything around here. And we have some seasoned people with us. I know we have some beginners, but we also have some very, very seasoned people who have made hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of extracts themselves. So to tell us what you like to do. What do you like to do?
I like to make brownies. I got a lot of compliments on my cacao coffee bean brownies.
Ooh,
oh my gosh. That's a recipe you're going to have to share.
Yeah.
I actually like to grind them, of course, and use it in my coffee. So that way it gives it such a nice flavor. So if you add it to your coffee grinds, it just is so delicious.
Yes.
Now we're talking.
I have done that.
I've got a few comments in the chat too of other things that people like to do. Moonbeam Olivia likes to dry and grind them and add to sugar. And also as a meat rub. That sounds good.
Meat rub's wonderful. We've done that. And Moon Babe, we're so happy that you're here.
Leslie also grinds them and she adds them to sugar and uses it for the rim of her espresso martinis.
Oh my goodness.
Heavens.
That we have not done.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to try that.
Yeah, seriously.
And Constance uses hers leftovers on her morning oatmeal.
Ooh, we love that too. Anything on oatmeal is wonderful.
Well, you spice
it up a little bit for sure. Even Go ahead.
And it's, well, you're not adding a ton of sugar.
No,
right?
well, we've
Like
done something similar with the leftover spices in the winter spice extract. And
Mhm.
it's a little bit of spice like on oatmeal or those kinds of like,
it's so good.
oh, it's
And then
wonderful.
I'm not adding a ton of sugar in that. If I want to add sugar, I can do it on the side. But if I don't, I'm just adding, just a little bit of
I see.
spices there.
Just the delicious flavor.
Yes.
And then Jessica, she likes to grind her cacao nibs up and put them in her chocolate chip cookies.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a must.
She also has the question of, she'd like to know your opinion of mixing gold rum and white/silver rum in one extract. I don't know.
You want
Is
me
it
to take
rum
that?
you're using in this
you
one or
want.
vodka in this one?
This one had vodka. We use
On vodka.
Svetka, which is kind of one of our go-tos, like middle, lower shelf, but the quality is really, really good that we like.
Mhm.
But in terms of mixing within the same spirit category, we always say that's okay.
Yeah.
The
And I
difference-
like gold and white, I think would be fine
yeah,
because it's the same spirit category.
yeah. The difference between a silver rum or a white rum, a gold rum, or like a dark rum and aged rum is the amount of time that the rum was left to age within the cask. And so a silver rum that comes right out of the distiller's bottled and it's sort of ready to go as is, it's sugar based, so it's sweet. A gold rum has sat in the cask for X amount of times. I can't remember. We actually did a video on this years ago. I can't remember the exact age, but it's just a younger aged rum. And then when you get into like your dark rums, they're aged for even longer and take on the scent or the aroma and the taste of the cask. Most of the casks are purchased from bourbon distillers. Bourbon always has to begin with a brand new American oak cask that's never been used before. So as a result, they can never reuse them. So they have on the secondary cask market, most of the world's casks that are floating all around, even Scotland, where they make scotch. It's American bourbon casks. And so most of the rum people use that. So using different rums in the same category or spirits in the same category, usually okay. We've done that before. You're not going to have any problems at all. You're just going to add a little more smokiness when you add that gold rum into your extract.
What you don't want to do is, mix. So if you start with vodka and then put bourbon in, you're going to come up with something completely different. And I wouldn't mix the spirit.
No, we don't recommend that at all. And there's an exception to every rule. Like sometimes you use Everclear to beef up the proof, but that's where we can start getting really complicated. So rule of thumb, as you're just getting started, always stay within the same spirit category. This is important too in your mother jars, because you might have a gold rum when you begin your mother jar, and then you added all these new beans a year later and you can't remember what that first rum was. It's just important to remember that it's a rum, and then if you add a silver, if you add an aged, you're going to be okay.
It's just what's in the bean. It's not going to make a huge difference if you've got a little bit of bourbon in that bean that you're putting in. But if you're refilling it, I would always refill it with the original alcohol that you started with.
Yep. Great question. Love that question.
Wise advice not to mix your spirits, right?
Yes. We've had some bad experiences.
Oh,
really, bourbon just kind of takes over.
Yes.
Bourbon takes over. So if you've got a vodka and you add a bourbon, you might add 6 to 12 more months to your extract making timeline, because bourbon is such a strong spirit. And then even some of the dark rums, they'll just take over. So you really just want to make sure, keep bourbons with bourbons, rum with rum, vodka with vodka.
Yeah.
Brandy with brandy, on and on. Cognac with cognac. Cognac and brandy can go together. Now we're getting, I'm down the rabbit hole.
No. That being said, I was going to say, this is not a hard, fast rule where you never mix. Because that's a whole new recipe for you. Brandy and, cognac. And I mean, there are all kinds of different things that you maybe could try and see. If there are two spirits you like, try it out. You might create something that we're all going to start.
You might, but we caution against that bourbon with a vodka.
No. Yeah. Well, it'll just become very bourbon.
Yeah, it'll be bourbon wins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wanted to clarify. Vodka does have cognac in it. There is an alcohol out there. It's called 20 Grand Gold, and it is vodka cognac mix.
Oh,
that is interesting. Well, I have not seen that one. Julie, how have we not run into you at the state liquor store here in Utah?
I don't shop in Utah.
Oh, That's why. You know, the better stuff's all outside of the state. You're very smart.
It is true. It is true.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to look up that vodka. I'd like to know more about it. I haven't seen a cognac vodka blend.
Yeah, that's interesting.
No, but vodkas are getting really creative now, like the Rain Cane vodka that we promote. I mean, vodka usually historically didn't come from sugar, but Rain Cane comes from sugar. But the temperature at which it's distilled is what makes it a vodka. And so people are getting real creative. So the more spirits that are being created, the more extract applications.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to have to hurry things along because we want to get into our next extract. So let's go ahead and finish the mocha.
So really nothing is dripping out of this. So I'm just going to set it over here in the sink for later to dry. Just going to pour back some or all of my alcohol. And really, if at this point, at this point, I mean, really, it's just right below the line. So I really don't feel like I need to add. If you want to, you can.
Just a quick question whilst you're pouring there, Jill. Laura asked, is it better to leave the beans whole when you take them out so that you still have the caviar? Or is, I guess that's just personal preference.
And I'll take this one. So if you recall back on our very first class, the challenge with leaving them whole in a mixed ingredient extract is just space. So we were trying to cut everything down so it all went low so that 8 ounces of alcohol covered everything. And so when you're doing a multi-ingredient extract, you lose some of those options. Now, you can certainly try tying them in a single knot, maybe even a double knot, just to like get them down low if you want to preserve the caviar. But in the case of like, and we're going to get into this in a minute, like in double fold extracts or extracts with lots of ingredients, we just find it's easier to just cut them into small pieces to make sure that they all are submerged underneath the alcohol. So we have a whole section on the pros and cons of slicing versus not slicing beans on our website that you can look at, to kind of see why you would and why you wouldn't. But with multi-ingredients, it's just difficult.
It is, but make sure that you just put the vanilla beans on the bottom. And, if you're using a mason jar or even these French squares, you can kind of get something in and kind of push things down if you feel like things aren't quite covering. I have noticed though, when I tie the beans, it kind of makes it more difficult to get it all covered in an extract like this that has so many, we had so many coffee beans and cacao beans that it kind of filled halfway up. When we did this originally in November, that's why I did it backwards. So you could see how much the cacao and then the coffee was going to fill it. And that's why we cut it so small.
Yep. Now you've got some residue on the side. We just shake around the spirit once you
I
put
will.
the lid on it to take all that residue off the side.
Yeah. And that's why I didn't rinse it out. If there's a little piece of cacao in there, it's going to be just fine. If you don't like that, you can rinse it out. So I'm just going to kind of shake it.
There you go.
Okay. And then this is where I change out my instructions for myself. I take this old one off and then I put my new one on. And that way it's just when I open the cupboard, I know exactly where I am at. Next December, I'm going to have more mocha vanilla to put in my coffee and brownies.
There you go. And, obviously with the beans back in there, the vanilla beans take longer to extract than anything. Cinnamon extracts faster. The star anise from our last one extracts faster. Cloves, obviously the cacao, the coffee, they all extract really, really quickly. So the point is right now when you're changing them out and you smell it, you're going to smell a ton of coffee and cacao. Mm-hmm. It's going to be, the vanilla is only going to be a hint because it's only been in there for a couple of months, 3 months. And so it'll be there, but it'll be very subtle. So the reason that we're waiting now is 100% for the vanilla. And the reason I say that is, and we said this in the last live that we did, is a lot of people now are taking their finished extracts and they're using their finished extracts to make their multi-ingredient extracts. Because if we had started with a fully extracted like Madagascar vanilla extract, then you could have poured that finished Madagascar extract in just with the coffee and cacao. And then in 3 months, you have mocha extract instead of having to wait an entire year. But since we started with new vanilla beans, we've got to wait a whole year for the mocha to be finished. But that's a really important point. And one of the things that we're encouraging people more and more to do is to start a lot of those like single bean extracts or a blend of beans, with just a vodka or just a bourbon. Have many of them ready, because then you can go back, and this is a great use for mother jar extracts that are finished. You can go back, you can start these multi-ingredient extracts with a finished extract that's 35% alcohol because you made it correctly, and you can use it to extract the beans of the cacao. Now we're talking about finished multi-ingredient extracts in 2, 3, 4 months, right? Which is fun, really fun.
Yeah.
Anything we can do to save time.
Yes, but for our beginners, if you don't want to, commit to that much vanilla, it's a lot, and vanilla beans are expensive. If you're just getting into it, just start with, a few different recipes and see what you think.
Totally.
And then you'll know kind of what direction you want to go in.
But we always say start with 2 or 3. So in a year, you can at least do 2 or 3 different taste tests. If you start all with the same one, you wait a year, you're like, that was great, you don't have anything to compare it to. Give yourself a taste test in a year with lots of them. And this is another reason you want to make them with friends, because if you all coordinate with friends, you just each make a different one. And then it's a great reason to have a party and do it, right? Have a taste test, have fun after a year.
Well, and when we first started, we were taste testing after a month with everything because we're nerds. We're vanilla nerds. It was an experiment for us. We were just trying to figure out, how does this work, right? Like, what is it? How long does it really take for this to be great? And we really found that after a year, that sweet spot, it's great at a year. But we know a lot of people say, I like it at 3 months or 6 months. So you're welcome to taste test it. And taste testing is also in our book. Taste test it in a month. It's not going to taste great, but it'll be an experiment. Right. You'll be able to follow it along the path where you're like, yeah, at a month, wow, it was really, really strong. And I mean, if you want to be as nerdy as us, do it at 2 months and try it then. And then you'll kind of experiment and find where your sweet spot is. Maybe it isn't a year. You'll find out yourself.
And we've done it every single month on many, many extracts regularly, where we're like, okay, I get it. And we'll take notes and be like, this one, I think it's done. We try it a month later. Of course it's better. So that's why when we say sweet spot, it's our own personal sweet spot that we've seen when we're extracting.
Yeah.
Let's jump in. We're going to close the book on mocha. We're going to come back and we're going to taste test this mocha extract for the holiday season next year. So tune in next November, and we'll bring this one back out. We'll do a taste test, see how it turned out. But right now, this one just kind of goes away into our cabinet. It's
going to go in the back.
Hundreds of others.
Yeah.
And we'll see it on, we've got 12/21. So we'll see it right before Christmas next year.
And again, originally, my original date is always at the bottom.
Yep.